and allowing people to get in. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Let's just give 4 minutes to everyone join. And it's going to be our guest speaker today. I don't know if you want to say something to her.
I will say hello to them. Hello, Gianluca, Agnieszka, Maya. Hello, Salvatore. Didi's not taker, I guess that's an AI.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Ujitkovnik, Zoom. I don't know if it's an organization, a name. Sorry for my ignorance in that. But hello, everyone. Who else do we have here? We have. Okay, Leah. Okay, welcome everyone. Ivona, welcome. Hello, everyone. Everyone's just Max in the room. Abdelatif, hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Ivona. Welcome. We're waiting just a couple of minutes, the 5-minute leeway for all these online meetings. Okay, I'm at the library. Don't worry. Don't worry, Abdelatif. You can always use, if you want to add something, like you or anyone can just unmute your microphone during the session or just use the chat. Okay, it's totally fine. No problems. Okay. Okay. Becca Marqueda, hello. I don't think I said hello to you. Just going through all the names. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where we are. We see that afternoon or evening, right? In Spain, it's still afternoon, but for some countries, it's evening, right? Or morning, I don't know where you are, or even later on, so.
Here it's still afternoon. There's a bit of sun yet, sunlight.
Yeah, the sun sets even later than in Spain, in Portugal. So for our time, there's this 1 hour different which is super weird because Spain isn't following the, let's say, the proper time zone we should. For the ones who don't know about that, Spain Spain had a civil war between 1936 and 1939. And after that, the right wing, let's say, won, and we had a dictatorship for 40 years. And in the 40s, 50s, and in the 30s, Franco, the dictator, wanted to support Hitler somehow, but Spain was a very poor country. A lot of men, like in the military, had died during the Civil War. So Spain, like as a country, couldn't send any military or any economic help to for the Nazis. So one way that Franco found to say, okay, we support Hitler and the Nazis was to have the same time zone than Germany, even though it's not the current, the actual one we should have. We should be in the same time zone that Portugal, that is 1 hour less. That's why we have like Spain and then the Canary Islands, which is 1 hour less, and Portugal, and that would be our reality, let's say. But for whatever reason, we haven't changed it yet. So fun fact that is not fun, but it's historic fact that is very interesting that nowadays, into 2025, still same time zone. Just let me know, Katarina,
When you feel ready to start?
Ready to start. You want me to start sharing the screen, or you let me know, okay, when you need it?
Yeah, feel free.
Okay, perfect. There you go. If you want to, whenever you want to present the DigiSkills, and I'll start with mine because you know it way better than I do. Katarina or Sarah, you want me to present DigiSkills, or you'd like to do it?
Up to you.
I prefer you to do it.
Okay. Okay, so let's go. DigiSkill is our new project. And it's Erasmus Plus project. We and our 5 partners from Czechia, Sweden, Uganda, Nigeria, and are promoting virtual exchanges. And this webinar is one of them to empower the youngsters for the digital skills and the intercultural communication.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see here, we are thinking that we can empower at least 2,500 youngsters around the world. This is part of the 3rd point, so webinars across partner countries. This is our 2nd, and this year we will do 2 extra webinars, and we are already on the 7th online dialogue. Next year we will start with the interactive open online courses. Here it's our partners that I'm really grateful for the help. I believe there's some of them here with us today. And this project is all funded by European Union, Commission, and Erasmus Plus. Thank you, Anna.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Tarina, for the presentation. It's always nice to know where the projects come from, because sometimes we forget, right? We see webinars and we see different things, but we forget the root of it all. So my name is Anna. It's the 2nd webinar that I'm giving, the 2nd and the last. Last one was more about how to work on an international CV, and then we saw a little bit how to do an interview also for an international job abroad or at home, because international nowadays can mean a lot of things. And today what we'll see during 30 minutes, okay, let me see, it's 8:09, so for 30 minutes approx, we see how to manage some clues, some like maybe basic for some of you, maybe advanced, it depends, because the group is very diverse. So some of you might have, from what I read, from your expectations, what you'd like to learn in this webinar. Some of you have a lot of experience already, like organizing meetings or attending meetings or working in virtual teams, whereas some of you don't have any. So I tried to make sure the basics are covered, and then we'll have about 30 minutes for questions and answers and for dialogue. So feel free. If you have other sources, other resources, any tips that work for you, anything, just feel free to share them at the end or during the presentation, okay? Just make sure you unmute your phone, your microphone, or you write in the chat, because if I don't see it, I will see it at the end, okay? So just make sure if you want to add something, make sure you do it, okay? So I talk a lot and I tend I'm not always checking the chat while giving the presentation, but please make sure you remind me later, okay? So what we'll see today is this, how to manage some tips to manage effective international virtual meetings, okay? Online meetings. Some clues, and at the end I'll send Katarzyna and Sarah like the decalogue we're gonna see today, okay? So don't worry, so you can you'll have the materials. Probably not the presentation because it's out of context, but I'll give you a document that it's more useful usually, okay, to go to these places, so don't worry about that. Okay, we'll see how to manage time zones and attention spans, the role of silence across cultures that we usually forget about, tools for ensuring every voice is heard, or trying, you know, it's very difficult to say, okay, I'm sure everyone was heard or everyone had the chance to talk. We never know, but at least there's some tricks that we can learn, and navigating the VUCA world, okay? In the end, what we want to do is to make online meetings work. I tried to work online since 2017, and it was impossible to have all these virtual meetings and everything. And then the pandemic came and it changed the whole way to see what was possible and was not possible. And we are still learning, right? How to do these online meetings and online activities. And I would like to, some more people are joining, that's great. But I want to start with a simple question, okay? And the question is, if this meeting were happening in person, okay, what would we be having? Okay, coffee, would we be sharing a coffee, tea, wine, or water right now? Come on, in the chat. Try to, I don't know if you can, if there's an emoji or not, but I don't think you can put emojis, but just write. What would you rather have right now? Would you be, I don't know, sharing a coffee, sharing, you can have, okay, you can use emoji and words. Maya says tea, Gianluca coffee, Abdelatif, Ismail tea. Who else? What would you be having? Tea, water, wine, coffee? We have a couple of teas. Okay. No one would go for wine? Hello, Anas. Katarina says tea. No one goes for wine or water. Okay, we have the in-betweens, okay? In Spain at this time, it's accepted, like culturally, it would be accepted to have a glass of wine. Maybe it's more if it's a meal or so. And in some places, okay, water or any other drinks. Okay, good. Perfect. It says in Spain, no, not many people would have tea. Okay, Spain is not a tea country. Okay, and now for you, okay, if you think, and please write in the chat, the perfect place for an international meeting, okay, if you have to choose the perfect place for an international meeting with people from different places, would it be at a cafe, maybe at the beach, maybe at an office, the easy way, maybe online, or maybe somewhere else? Write in the chat, what would be the best place for you to have an international meeting? Hello, Anas, we're just starting, so don't worry. Just try to write in the chat, what would be the perfect place for you to have a meeting? Like at the beach or at the mountain or at a cafe? Come on, write in the chat. Any of you, please? Where would you like to have an international online? Okay. Katarina is like, I like being home. I have my office, so it's practical. Then I can go to have dinner right away. What else? I only see Katarina's. Okay, Gianluca, cafe online. Okay. At a cafe, okay, in a more relaxed mood. at the office, okay. And it's at the office where you know when to start, when it finishes, you can see people face to face in a calm environment, online. Okay. Okay. At a cafe, Yvonne is at a cafe at a garden. Okay, that's also very nice. A garden when it's quiet. Perfect. You see, even in this small group here, okay, small or big, it's 20 something people today. We might have different rhythms, different expectations, different places where we feel more comfortable, or outdoors, Agnieszka, if the weather is nice, right? Or at the office. We may have different expectations of what can work and what cannot work, okay? So that's exactly what today's session is about, how to make online meetings more inclusive, efficient, and culturally aware, okay? We all have our preferences, not only in the spaces, but in the type of meetings. And how can we do these online meetings work? Okay, thanks for sharing your ideas. Here I have this VUCA, V-U-C-A. Do you know what it means? Does it ring a bell? No, it's okay. It's not a test. Just asking because maybe someone knows about it. Let me see. Okay, no problem. Okay. VUCA. I'm thinking if I should tell you right away. Okay. VUCA means that we live in a world where volatility is volatile, it's complex, it's uncertain, and it's ambiguous, right? Well, nowadays, the world changes very fast, and there's a lot of volatility, complexity, uncertainty, and ambiguity. And before, we had to organize ourselves and go somewhere to meet internationally, but now we can be home with all our distractions. I don't know, I have my neighbors making noise here, and I have that, and I have to turn off the notifications to be focused on everything. So everything changes. And when we're online, it's even more difficult. Maybe some of you are with a computer here and you're checking your messages or you whatever, right? Or with different things. There's in all this complexity, there's the visible part, the visible diversity, but online there's also the invisible diversity, right? Maybe some of you decide not to turn off on your cameras. Some of you want to turn it off. Some of you might disguise where you are, different things that we don't see and that maybe we don't need to know, but maybe some others we need to pay attention to, making sure there's spaces to speak up if someone wants to, how to handle silence. Okay, so different ways to show this diversity and making sure people can talk in this VUCA world, okay? I'm focusing this meeting a lot in international setting. It can work also, if you have a meeting in the same city and you're in different places, but let's try to bring it also always to the international setting, because this is also part of this cultural work on cultural awareness we need to bring into the meeting, right? Maybe thinking taking into account that we don't know everything, and then there's a lot of cultural issues that we think we might know, and they show differently in meetings, and then taking those into account is very important also for leadership. Okay. And at the beginning, I asked, to put emojis. Most of you use the words. And in a lot of meetings, we use emojis, right? Emoticons to express our feelings, or if we agree, we don't agree, different things like that. And do you think emojis, the meaning of emojis is international? I learned, I don't know, a couple of years ago, that there is like a committee of experts, of people who gather from different places of the world, and they decide what emoticons, what emojis are added into our keywords, into everything, and which ones are not yet to be there to make language like the expression more inclusive. And they all have a meeting. So maybe we use one that in other, I use one, we use this one to say thank you, please. And in other countries, it's more for praying, right? Whereas some people use it for praying. And in some religions, they might use a moon, or they might use a star. Okay, so it's all, when we work in different groups and people with different cultures, it's something that we also need to take into account, the different meaning of emojis. Okay, we did something very simple that was with tea, water, or so, and we still chose words, right? Because when we use emojis, there may be this misunderstanding also. So that's something that we need to take into account. We'll see it later. And now I want you to think of in one of or two words in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. To think about one meeting that you did online and write a meeting. Think about a meeting that was confusing, that you didn't understand what was going on. You were like, this makes no sense. What went wrong in that meeting? Maybe it was too long, maybe too boring, maybe, you know, the slides had too much words. I don't know. Tell me something about a meeting. Let's take some seconds to think about a meeting that went wrong, let's say. And what made you feel confused, or you said, nah, this was not a good meeting? Let's see. Do you remember any meeting that's like, oh, that was boring? Or in this meeting, there's silence and I don't feel comfortable because I'm lazy. I don't want to write today, which is totally fine. Go leave like some seconds. Technical issues with sound, right? Sarah says, or problems with the internet, voice, technical issues, sometimes it happens. When there's some places where the internet connection is way less stable, right? Maybe we're in a big city, it's easier, but maybe depending where we are, or the country, or the area, or even if we're in a small town or in a rural area, it's more difficult. You mentioned a couple of technical issues, but sometimes there's a lot of human issues that maybe we don't realize, right? It's easier to see the ones that are technicals because they make us nervous, but there's a lot of other aspects that, for example, might be silence, the timing, the misunderstandings, right? The way to finish meetings, the way to start them, everything that can be human, let's say human oriented, and they don't need to belong only to different cultures, but to take them into account. And what we're gonna do today is trying to find how to have inclusive meetings. Okay, so for that I thought, how can we do it a bit more, you know, fun than just giving a list? So we're gonna see the inclusive meeting toolkit. Okay, and that's what you will get. That's what you will get in a document probably. Okay, so you can go through it. It's very simple, you'll see, but sometimes that's what works better. Okay, for example, the first point of the inclusive meeting toolkit, okay, is punctuality and time zone fairness. Okay, punctuality generally, okay, when we say, okay, the meeting is at like today, like 8 p.m. in Spain, 7 p.m. in Portugal, maybe there's another time zone, but it doesn't really matter because with in our, let's say, Portugal, Spain, maybe in other countries it's different, just let me know in the chat or unmute yourself. We have the 5-minute leeway, right? Okay, if it starts at this time, we give 5 minutes, and it's like sort of an accepted rule in a lot of countries, right? The 5 minutes to wait, and then we start, and then people keep coming. But maybe if we are working with people more from especially the US, right? Or people who belong to cultures, okay, we're generalizing because the US in this case, and every country can have a lot of different realities. But in some countries, when we say 8, that's 8, right? For example, I lived in China, and when we had a meeting at 8, we met like 10 minutes beforehand to make sure we could talk, we could say hello, we could do all the presentations and start sharp at 8 p.m., right? So let's agree that when we do it online, we need to be connected if it's a meeting at the time the meeting is supposed to start. And guess, maybe do some research. If the colleagues you're going to meet up with, they expect you to be there 10 minutes, 5 minutes before the time. Okay, especially if it's a professional meeting. Then the time zone fairness, right? Here in this case, in our case, right, with Spin and me, I'm based near Barcelona, Spin is in Portugal, and you're probably from different countries. What happens when, if, for example, we had meetings, this is a webinar, but if we had team meetings, right, from, I don't know, 6 different countries, like in this project, yeah, there's like 6 countries, and I think 6 countries, European and African, and how could we make the meetings work? Should we always make it, for example, if I work from 8 to 3, should we plan always the meeting in my schedule? Because I'm in Spain and that's what works for me. If maybe that means doing it in the afternoon or very early in the morning for the partners, the African partners. Should we shift, rotate the meeting times? Okay. To take some time zone fairness, there's 2 possibilities, okay? One is doing the meeting and at a time that sort of works for everyone in the working schedule, okay? For example, let's say, I don't know, let's do it like let's say 1 p.m. Okay, so that everyone is sort of in the working time. So maybe it's not the perfect time for you to have a meeting, but still is in your working time. Or another thing we can do so that it's not always at 1 p.m. that maybe works fine for us, but for other colleagues is a very bad time, depending where we are, is to rotate the meetings, right? To do maybe in my Spanish time, one could be at 1 p.m. The other one maybe is at 6 p.m., which is very inconvenient, but maybe we're working with someone from China. So maybe in that rotation, some days I will have to do a meeting at 7 p.m., which is not in Spain, let's say a usual working hour for an organization. But if we do it once every 6 months or once from one in a while, maybe the other partners can have better schedules. Okay, so think about that when we think about this, the time zone fairness. Okay, that maybe if you're coordinating a project or if you have a meeting, the time doesn't always need to be the one that really fits you or the colleagues that are in the part of the world you're at. Okay, so take that into mind and try to talk about that in the first meeting, or actually propose right away the rotating, okay, to make it fair. It's different with webinars and so, because then you want to have the time where people can connect, right? But when you do, in this case, a virtual meeting, and it's a team of people that you work together often, like let's try to do that, so to make sure there's not burnout from some of the colleagues. Okay, the second element is turn taking and conversation management. Okay, sometimes we expect to ask yes or no. Okay, do you agree? Yes, no. Do you like this proposal? Yes, no. We expect the yes or no, right? Depending, it's a very short webinar today, so I'm just giving ideas here so that you can do some research and take into account different models and so. But in a lot of cultures, saying yes and no is not as direct as we might expect, right? So depending on where we're used to, if we don't have an answer, right, we might think, okay, they are not interested. But maybe in some cultures, saying yes or no doesn't depend on the person who is meeting, okay? They need to ask the boss or some colleague or to talk it in the team. Maybe for some others, they tell us no, but we don't understand because they don't use the direct word no, but they use different phrases to let us know they don't agree. Okay, so also we need to do some research about the cultural the cultural model, the cultural aspects that might bring, like, from different countries with the people we're working with, to see what can happen. Okay, and to take those into account. Do not think that our way of doing questions work, because again, when we're working in international teams, especially if it implies people from different continents, we should always try to give not to give the answer yes or no, right? It's like for example, write the word in the chat if you understood what I said, right? It's like, I did understand. Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so giving more choices to people than yes or no. And also, if it's a meeting, maybe we should establish a rule at the beginning, at the first meeting or second meeting, to tell everyone, okay, everyone will have to introduce themselves or say something at the beginning. So please prepare a greeting or something, because everyone will have to take turns, like greeting the others. Okay, it's also a very good way to make sure that not only the same people talk or the ones who feel confident talking in front of a screen are the ones who take over the words, okay? So it's also very, very important, especially if we have the meetings in English, especially if maybe we are English speakers or we control the English and maybe some other people in the room, let's say, okay, in the virtual room, do not feel that confident with the language, okay? So it's a lot of things that we need to make sure. Also, we can talk, with emojis and like making people express themselves with emojis, even though they mean different things, but it can also open up a conversation, right? In a way that like putting a smiley and then just trying to see how things work, just ideas to make sure everyone without the camera or with the camera or with the chat, whatever, they can express themselves. I'll send you different articles with more detailed tips with that, okay? Otherwise, we could be just 1 hour talking about that. Okay, create multiple ways to speak. Okay, it's connected. Just making sure everyone has a turn to speak and create multiple ways to speak with a chat, with a microphone. Maybe they can send, okay, you can send me a private message, okay, answering this, and I will collect the answers so that you don't need to give your opinion or your answer in front of the whole group, but just to someone we agree, okay, it can also be rotating. It doesn't need to be the person speaking, but trying to make sure there's a person who can get the messages and bringing them to the group without saying who told them, okay? So there's always different ways to do that, okay? Or giving a chance to say, okay, please, you have 1 hour after the meeting to send an email if you want to comment on something after the meeting. And then it's a very good way also to give space to maybe people who don't feel comfortable at all, okay, being in online meetings, but they have to be, because it's not a webinar where you're there because you want to, but you have to because it's your way of working. Name the silence, okay? We're going to watch a very short video about silence and cultural awareness later, so I'll leave that one there. But we need to understand that silence also has a meaning, right? It's not only a space that we live just because, but even though if we don't realize it has a meaning, in silence, music is part of the music. So in communication, silence is also part of communication. So we need to be aware of that, but there's a short video where Erin Meyer explains it way better than I do, so we'll watch it later. And bridge language gaps. Okay, we're here doing this webinar in English, and I don't know if we are all, if there's anyone who is actually an English speaker, right? So I speak very fast, I'm aware of that, and nowadays we have a lot of tools, right? To transcribe, to translate if we want to, so it's also we need to know, it's also something we need to know, especially, is it a meeting with young people, with older people? Is it people whose like English is the second, third, fourth language? Okay, how can we do it? A way to work with language is having the keywords written on the screen, right, on the slides. Only at the beginning I put a text, and all the rest is keywords to make sure that we don't get the whole message, but maybe we make sure that people in the meeting know what we're talking about, so that we can refer to that and just like from a word or concept, just pull it and keep talking, right? To make sure that the gap is less, or to say, okay, you can, I don't know, I remember doing an interview with a couple of months ago with an organization from Portugal, and it's like, hey, let's not try to do it in English. Does it work better in English or in Portuguese and Spanish? So we had, like, there's a lot of AI tools nowadays that we can use, but we sort of could understand each other and we could express all the nuances way better in our native language. So let's not assume that English is always the language we need to use in our meetings, okay? Or we can also try to learn some words of the language of the people that we know are going to attend the meeting, because they are part of the team. Okay, we have already. Fine. Okay, and one thing with the language, keys, keep it short, simple, and slow. Okay, I gave this keys advice last time. It usually keep it short and simple, and I add slow. It's more for myself because I tend to speed up, but it's very, very important. Okay, especially when there's speakers from different languages around. Okay, so the sixth one is warm up before diving in. Okay, we need to take some time. Maybe, I don't know, like I did a couple of questions, like that are we don't start right away with the topic. It's like, oh, where would you have your meeting? What, the beach or in the mountains? Or what would you be having for a drink? You know, would you be having a tea? So we can imagine that situation is sort of like warm up, okay, with something as simple as that. But they can be any other things, but acknowledge the people, you know, like welcome there by the names, or the names, even if we don't see them, the names that show up in the screen. Clarify the context and the expectations. Okay, so it's very important at the beginning, even though we think it's very clear that everyone knows why we are there. Don't assume things. Let's make things clear. Okay, it's like, okay, we're here because we are having a meeting about the project. I don't know, we're having a webinar, a spin webinar, and maybe some of you were here last time, maybe not, but let's explain. Or, okay, we're gonna see these 4 points, and we're gonna do it for 30 minutes, 35 minutes, and then we're gonna have a Q&A. Okay, it's very, very important because people from some cultures or really need that clarity, instead of just being in front of the screen and saying, okay, I don't really know when am I be able to go for dinner, or if I can have my camera on and off. I didn't say anything about cameras because I assume everyone, like, it's not required here, so everyone does it how way it feels comfortable. Okay, because it's always this conversation, right, of like camera on, off, is it inclusive, not? Okay, that's another thing. Should we ask for people to have their cameras on, want it or not? Okay, some people say yes, but then if we have people in different socioeconomic situations, and then maybe they don't want to show the background, or they don't want to show where they are connecting, or whatever, okay, or they don't have an office, or they have an office but they don't really want to show it. So it's also a thing that we need to take into account in online meeting, not assuming that the camera on is always the solution. Okay, that's why we need to take into account all the rest to make it inclusive. Okay, the eighth, it was in a different order, but okay, it's okay. Visualize your words. Okay, I said, like, put the keywords on the screen. I was attending a webinar that the topic was super interesting yesterday, but all the slides had like 10 lines of text. And I ended up leaving because that was way too much for me at the time that I was doing it. Okay, because I thought, okay, webinar, we can learn, but it's not going to be a master. It's going to be, we're going to have some ideas. Okay, so when we're presenting or having a meeting, like keywords, then we'll go to other things. We'll find other tools to work, but it's very, very important that we use like keywords. Listen actively. Okay, listening, we think we listen all the time, but then listening actively brings a lot of effort. It's like really not listening to answer, not listening to reply, not listening to tell people if they are right or wrong, but listening to really listen to proposals, to the ideas, what silence says, what words don't say, what the indirect language is saying. Okay, so it applies also to in-person. Okay, it's a very important part of the intercultural competence. And always end with clarity. Okay, in some cultures, like a wrap up in the end is not important, for some others it is. So end with clarity, and if you don't have time, I'll see how I finish today, because I'm already out of time a little bit, but in 5 minutes I'll finish, girls, don't worry. But it's important in meetings, right? This is a webinar, so the conclusions is more of a talking about a topic and giving some resources. So there's not going to be like very specific or new conclusions in the end, of we don't have to do agreements. But when we are in a virtual meeting, we need to end up with clarity to see what are the agreements, what are the next steps. Do I need to do something? Are we meeting? Do I need to do anything before the next meeting, right? So we need to really end up with clarity to make sure that everyone understands. Have you ever been in a presentation or somewhere where people say, okay, and they mean they are done, but no one understands they are done, right? In person or online, it's like, okay. And then the person's like, okay, bye-bye. And everyone is like, oh, okay, perfect, right? And they just say bye-bye. So same thing, just making sure that everyone knows when things finish, also to make sure they have time to bring something out. And let's go back to this one, okay? This has to do with the silence, right? I said that we were gonna go back to silence. This image, that's this image say anything to you? Probably not. Okay. This is 3 different patterns of silence, okay, that were different for different cultures. We're going to watch now a video by, let me see where it is. Give me a sec. Okay. A short video, I think it's 4 minutes, by Erin Meyer. Erin Meyer is one of the main, I don't know if I have her book here. No. She's one of the main, let's say, interculturalists nowadays. She works a lot worldwide, and she gives a lot of training, and she developed this model that is like 8 dimensions of different cultures, like working together. What are the main conflicts, or what are some tips or some things we can use in communication, especially to make sure we understand each other? And she talks a lot about silence, okay? What's the role that silence plays in cultures? And she explains it very well in her video. She has a book that is called The Culture Map that I really recommend. It's probably in your native language too, because it's been translated in a lot of different languages. So if you cannot hear it, it works because we tried, but if for whatever reason you don't hear it, let me know, okay? I'll replay it. Let's go.
Like in some cultures, it's very appropriate for one person to talk and another person to talk at the same time. In these cultures, if we talk simultaneously, it shows, we've got a lot of enthusiasm in the room, a lot of passion, a great relationship. I'll put all Latin cultures, so Latin American, Latin European, I'll put France in that category too. India in informal situations, and some African cultures, right? There's another pattern that looks more like this. In these cultures, we talk like we play ping pong. We don't like overlap, and we don't like silence. The split second that you get the ball, you should return it. And we'll put all Anglo-Saxon and Germanic cultures into this pattern. And then a third pattern is a little bit more like this, where we may have one person speak and then we might have a short pause before the next person responds. East Asian cultures to different degrees fall in this pattern, although in Japan, you'll have a much bigger gap than you would find, for example, in China, as well as Nordic countries like Finland, which I would put here. So what would happen if you would have people from all 3 of these cultures, these patterns who are in the same meeting together? The third group loses, because they are waiting for that opportunity to speak that never comes. But if you are working internationally or leading an international team, please take control of this. Maybe you invite someone to speak who hasn't spoken yet. Maybe you set up some kind of rules on your team. If you've already spoken twice, instead of speaking again, you call on someone else to speak, right? Maybe you set your agenda, giving everyone a clear moment to speak. Whatever it is, if you make that effort, then you start to really hear the voice of diversity.
Super important what Erin Meyer says about silence and how to manage it. It's very simple tips but we can really follow, especially if it's meetings that we do from time to time, okay, to make sure that not always the same person speaks. And it's one of the main things we forget when we have meetings in general, but even more online, when we have to press a button to be able to speak or to share, right? So as leaders, if we're ever leading a meeting, we could have that into account. Okay, I hope wise. Just sorry, not sorry about that. Okay, hopefully there you go. With this, I'll finish. Okay. In the context of diverse and virtual spaces, active inclusion means creating the conditions for everyone to fully participate, contribute, and be heard, regardless of language, time zone, or communication style. It's difficult, but if we work in this, especially in Erasmus European projects, where inclusivity is one of the main elements, we also need to take into account maybe there's a person who is blind also, who cannot see, or who has hearing problems. We need to know a little bit who's going to participate in the meeting to make sure that we can make these meetings, right? Inclusive, especially if they are online, okay? When it needs the effort, the proactivity to click a button and talk, or to go to the chat, or, to have the space to want to show. Okay. with that, I'll close. Okay, just showing you that what we've seen today gathers around, again, intercultural competence, and it brings a social linguistic awareness when it comes to knowledge, cultural self-awareness. Look at the skill we have, listening, right? One of the ones that also showed here, the active listening, and seeing the world with others' perspective and having the attitudes. Okay, we can start here. Intercultural competence is the ability to behave and communicate appropriately and effectively in different intercultural settings, right? And to me, it all starts with attitudes. If we show respect, if we are open, right? Openness, if we are curious and we want to discover, we give space to the skill, to develop the skills and the knowledge. Not only to develop, to give a very good online virtual meeting, but for the future, right? If we have to do our CV, or we have to do more meetings, or we have to be a leader in this VUCA, no? Volatile, uncertain, and complex world, one of the things we need to do is sort of like humanize more the virtual spaces in meetings. Okay. And with that, okay, just a thought, and with that we'll open the question and answer space. What would you do differently in your next online meeting if you were to change something? Okay, just food for thought before opening the questions, the Q&A space. Okay, thank you. We could talk a lot, but we'll leave it here. It's better to have these 10 ideas and work around them. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because we can have our like Q&A if you feel like. Okay, there's some time for that. So we have some time to share some ideas that you agree, that you don't agree, that you didn't understand, that you want a bit more info, that you want some examples. Just feel free, okay, or to share your experiences, because you might have a lot of experience also running and organizing virtual online meetings. While you think about possible questions or things to say, I wanted to add that I decided to present this inclusive meeting toolkit, simple one that might seem simple with 10 things to take into account, but sometimes we need to start with the like 10 things or 5 things or 3 things, consolidate them, and then go ahead and move on to more like more concrete things or better. Okay, so I think Ivona, I don't, you unmute your microphone. I don't know if you would like to add something.
No.
Okay, no
let me
problem.
check.
It's totally
Sorry.
fine. Okay, I'll check, no problem. I'll check the chat. Sarah said, explain better in the briefing of the meeting that everyone will have a space for participating, plus wait more time for people to express their views. Okay, what would you change maybe in future meetings, right? Having that, giving that space, that space. Sometimes we want to go so straight to the point, okay, because we have one time that we sort of forget to dive in, right? To acknowledge or at least mention the names of the people, even saying hello, welcome, Gianluca, welcome, Agnieszka. You know, when we hear our name, hearing our names is something very, very powerful. It makes us present. It puts us directly in a space, even if it's just with that. Because they are not talking to the Annas or to Marias or to, they are talking to Maria, Anna, Sarah. So it's a very powerful way to acknowledge, if the number, you know, if the meeting allows it. But usually meetings allow it, otherwise it's more of a conference, right, or a presentation. So okay, perfect. And wait more time. Okay, no matter how uncomfortable silence is, it usually works. Okay, until we realize people are tired and, you know, that's enough. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Agnieszka says, okay, prepare before the meeting, not only about the subject, but also about participants and their culture. Okay, thank you, Agnieszka. Super important, right? If we know it's going to be an international meeting, okay, maybe not assuming where the people are going to be from, but where are the organization going to be from, right? And then we can start there. because maybe the organizations are from a place, so we can start there. So perfect. There's a lot. If you search for Erin Meyer, okay, I'll write her name. There's more, but Erin Meyer is she's a very good communicator. She has short videos about silence, about high context, about direct speaking, about indirect language that can give us some clues. And in videos of 5 minutes, we can get ideas. We won't be experts, but we don't need to be experts, maybe, no, if we want to. But she gives a lot of ideas, 5 minutes. She also publishes a lot of short videos in her LinkedIn profile and questions. So she does a good job there, because I think in YouTube it's more random, but in LinkedIn she steadily publishes a lot of things. Okay. So what would you do differently in your next online meeting, or what would you take into account? Any other ideas? One thing I do sometimes for these silence, sometimes I say, okay, I'm going to play 20 seconds of some music, right? So that people don't feel, I'm not doing it now because today with the technique, it's better when two people are doing it. So you can, one can pay attention to the people expressing themselves and the other one can just control like some soft music or something in the background, but that works very well too, okay? Music is the most universal language that exists. That's an opinion though, that doesn't say anywhere. It's just my opinion. Okay, Agnieszka, start with small talk to create friendly atmosphere. Small talk is a very good idea in some cultures. In some others, small talk is, and it always depends on where you're from, what you're used to, and the other, let's say the other person. Because for example, I usually work a lot with the US, with people from the US, and their small talk and my small talk is very different. The chit chat, the type of things that the speed, like this pam 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 that Erin Meyer showed, the speed of how they answer each other, and it's all the time filling in the silence. It's way too much for me. But it's interesting to take that into account and try to find different ways. Thank you, Agnieszka. Okay, Christopher says, all appreciation for their, okay. Thank you. At times, silence is taken as a yes answer, especially in certain aspects of meetings. It is really right to say when silence occurs during a meeting, then we should just conclude from our point of view to say when silence occurs during a meeting. I'm going to read it internally, okay? I don't know if I get the question right, but I'll try to give an answer, okay, according to that. In some cultures, when there's silence, it's appreciated as a yes, okay, because, okay, no one says anything, it means everyone is right. But it's not that common. It's just, if we see the cultures where it happens, sometimes it's like the UK, sometimes it's maybe the Netherlands, Germany, the US. So it's countries where everything goes very fast. And if you want to say no, you will say no. Because let's say culturally, the no is accepted, no? Saying that you don't agree with something is accepted. Whereas in other cultures, especially if you're in a group, you need to save face. You cannot say, no, I don't agree with what you just said. Okay, so silence, that's why we should find ways of asking things differently than a yes or a no. For example, ideas, Great, okay, I'll put a poll here and I'm gonna send a poll later. 1, I agree. 5, I don't agree. Or I also clarifying, because in some countries, 1 is the best note. Like in Germany, 1 is like the 10 in Spain, right? So you also need to clarify what is I agree, strongly disagree. But you can do that and range, right? Maybe you can then do an average, or you can send a very short poll. In the end, it's like, okay, please answer to this. How would you manage, or do you have what ideas do you have regarding the point we talk? Okay, because silence, we shouldn't assume that when there's silence, it means yes. We can also try, okay, write an emoji, right? I don't know, the blue emoji, the that square one is a yes, and purple is a no. I don't know, something like that, that people don't need to write yes or no, or say yes or no. You can look also for something more symbolic, or different ways to get answers. Or, okay, can you give me feedback about it? Can you just share the agreement we just made? And then you need to tell people, it's people who need to tell you what the agreement is. Paraphrase it. I don't know if I answered, but I think it was Christopher. I think your question was in this direction, right? Let me know if I didn't clarify. I can explain further, no problem. This is especially in one-on-one point. It always depends on the person and like your role, because maybe one-on-one and it's like peers, you know, you're in the same, let's say, position, maybe. But then if it's one-on-one, then it's, you know, usually non-verbal communication is also important, right? There's a way that you see a face, because you only have one person in front of the screen, right? You see the face, or you can ask things differently, but it also depends if, you know, if you are the manager and the other person is a, you know, let's say has a, depending how hierarchical also your organization is, your culture is, your work culture is, and like the role, no? If you're a manager and the other person is not, or the other person is new or younger, maybe that person will not feel confident enough to say no, even though you might be from the same organization, right? It doesn't need to be culturally different, but hierarchy plays very subtle roles depending on the country, the culture. Some others are more horizontal and saying yes, no, but in others, you need to make sure you keep your place with no problem. Okay. Also, depending on the professional market, on the employment, unemployment, there's a lot of factors there that we need to learn, all of us, a lot of communication skills, and new ones that are not that new, but we don't really learn specific ones for online meetings, right? We just take the ones we have and bring them in front of the camera. It's a bit different sometimes. Okay, thanks for the questions. I think we have some time for a couple or one or two more. We're finishing at 9, or?
We're finishing now. I can
Okay.
just share the evaluation form, and if there's anyone else with questions, you can do it meanwhile. So I'm going to send a message to the chat, and please everyone press the link and do the evaluation form. Meanwhile, you can continue with the answers and questions.
I will send a very simple, you know, a simple document. The Decalogue is like pom pom, and a couple of links or references so that you can explore a bit more. Because today the ideas of the webinar is that you have like key ideas, and then you can just keep pulling the thread and go deeper into the ones that you think you need to work on, or you want to work on, or the ones that you maybe you realize you know even more than you thought, right? So you have the evaluation form in the chat, so it's a short one. Will take like not even 3 minutes to answer to it, and it helps a lot for future trainings and webinars.
And meanwhile, I think we can present our next webinar. I don't know, Anna, if you finished.
I just want to thank you for attending, and I hope the information was useful, as you will have some documents, and thank you very much. I hope you keep attending the next one. I'm sure they will be very, very interesting.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for everything, for your participation, for your enthusiasm, and it's been great. Thank you very much. And about our next webinar, I am just going to share and the chat and share as well my screen. With the next webinar. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it, Katarina.
Good. This is our next webinar. It is being It is going to be by Gianluca Capataio, that is with us today, and it is going to be about stand out in global job market. So free and low-cost certificates to boost your CV. If someone is interested, join us on the 12th November at this time. I'm just going to share right now in the chat. I have to stop my screen. And please don't forget to fill the evaluation form. Anna, thank you very much. I don't know if you have something else to say.
No, again, I just want to thank you, Spin, and Katarina and Sara specifically, and also Daniela. You've made everything super easy all the time, because we see the live part, but there's also the back office and the background, and it's super easy and to work with you, and a pleasure to cooperate with Spin and with in this project. So just keep going, you two, and all the rest. I hope you keep attending the rest of the webinars. It looks really interesting, the next one with Gianluca. I hope it goes well, Gianluca. Thank you,
Anna. And thank you, everyone. Please don't forget to fill the form and to join us in the next one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Meet you next time. Thanks so much, Anna. Thanks,
Indeed.
everyone.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you.